and I like to share this because we're always destined to be where we're meant to be, right? And so this is a story my mom shared with me when I was a little girl, a little baby. And she had a blind uncle, and people went to him for healing, but he also preached through the Bible to people. So people would come and gather around his house. And one time, my mom wanted to go somewhere, and there was nobody there to meet me. And so I guess he said, "I'll keep her." And he predicted my life as to what it would be. And I guess he was holding me, and he was touching my face and my hair because he was blind. He didn't know or see. And I guess he said at that time that I would be a leader, that I would be a great leader for a lot of leaders. So when my mom shared that with me, and this was all, I was already in politics, right? And it made sense because it was always in my heart that I wanted to be a leader.
Quay Nindaluizi Pam Palmater, and I am the host of this show, The Warrior Life. I'm a lawyer, professor, author, and activist from Eel River Bar First Nation, and my motto is education for action. Action on Indigenous rights, social justice, and protecting the planet. And on this podcast, you get an education of a totally different kind. It's one that's based on the cultures, insights, and lived experiences of Indigenous leaders, authors, artists, land defenders, water protectors, all of whom are on the front lines of Indigenous resistance, resurgence, and revitalization. And today's episode is going to be a powerful one because we get to talk to this incredible Cree woman who is blazing trails and making history every single day. So make sure you stay tuned. Welcome back to the Warrior Life podcast. I'm your host, Pam Palmater, and today I have the great honor to talk to a Cree woman who I have admired for years and years and years. This woman is just so amazing, and she's done so many things. Grand Chief Cathy Merrick is a phenomenal person, and you wouldn't know to talk to her. She's very sweet, she's very humble, she's very soft-spoken. You would never ever think that she is the leader of this massive organization because she is a kukum and she's a mom. And for those of you who don't know her, she is the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, the first ever First Nation woman to hold that position. So that's massive. But this isn't the first time that she's blazed trails in the world of politics and leadership and advocacy. She served 12 years as counselor in her First Nation. And from there, she went on to serve 5 years as only the second woman to ever serve as chief of her First Nation. During her time as counselor, chief of her First Nation, and now as Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, she has already made significant impacts on the well-being of First Nations and continues her powerful advocacy on First Nation rights. Welcome to the Warrior Life podcast, Grand Chief Merrick.
Thank you for having me, Pam. I'm so excited to be in your presence.
That's so awesome. I'm so excited. I think your biggest fan. And for those of you who don't know, Grand Chief, I think, is sitting in her office at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, which is in downtown Winnipeg, but AMC represents a whole bunch of First Nations. But before we get started, because I have so many questions for you, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself in the way that you like to.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Pam. And my name is Cathy Merrick. I'm from Cross Lake, Manitoba, It's about an 8-hour drive from the city, and we're a Cree community. And I married a Dakota man. That's why my last name is Merrick. And so nanasko man, ano te e pese uitap mitagok mine pese ayan at sumustatagok ite nistagagautsian minaita nistagagautsinita ikian pimitsikamak itsikateo sampugayo kiwet nuk kautsian. So I introduced myself in my language, in my language, and I'm very fortunate to be able to speak the language. And I was just reaching out to my sister earlier, and she's a professor, a Cree professor, and I said, how do I write my name in syllabics? So she's always teaching me, right? And so I'm very grateful to. I give thanks for the beautiful day today, and I give thanks for having the opportunity to come and sit with you and to share my story, and to be able to share with you my journey, to be able to work for our people. So
Yeah.
as I said earlier, I'm from Cross Lake, Manitoba, and it's a Cree community, about 11,000 people, a very large community, about 800 people on reserve. So we're basically 2 hours south of Thompson. So
Oh, okay.
we're in the middle of the province, kind of. So under our Cross Lake Band of Indians is signatory to the treaty, and that's why we use that. And Bimichikama Cree Nation is our governance, our sovereignty, and our governance structure for our people. So I got to wear two hats at the time, and it was very interesting. And
Yeah.
that we have to be accountable through the Cross Stake Band of Indians to the government and to the contribution agreements and to everything in that manner. And then on the Pimichikamak, our governance side, we have
Mhm.
traditional councils. And as a chief at the time, I could not make any decisions on my own as chief. It's a democratic process. The input from the council, from the women's council, and from the youth council, and the executive council, which was the chief and council, is made the decisions. So it was a very good process. I really appreciated the fact that our women's council were the keepers of our laws, so they were very, very, and they still are. And I'm always very appreciative of them to be able to work with them and alongside them.
It's amazing when I think about your journey. Did you know when you were a little girl that you wanted to be a leader someday? Or were you thinking, I'm going to be an artist, or I'm going to be a policewoman, or I'm going to be a teacher? Was it always your dream to be a leader?
Actually, um, history, the history of, and I like to share this because we're always destined to be where we're meant to be, right? And so this is a story my mom shared with me when I was a little girl, a little baby. And she had a blind uncle, and people went to him for healing, but he also preached through the Bible to people. So people would come and gather around his house. And one time, my mom wanted to go somewhere, and there was nobody there to meet me. And so I guess he said, I'll keep her. And he predicted my life as to what it would be. And I guess he was holding me, and he was touching my face and my hair because he was blind. He didn't know or see. And I guess he said at that time that I would be a leader. that I would be a great leader for a lot of leaders. So when my mom shared that with me, and this was all, I was already in politics, right? And it made sense because it was always in my heart that I wanted to be a leader. And
Mm.
one of the things that made me want to become a leader was when we had to come out to school after back in the day when the school only went up to grade 9. So and we were 13, leaving the community and whatnot. And the leadership would talk to us. The chief would come and ask the students that were going out. And this one particular chief at the time, his name was uh, late Walter Monias. And he was a good chief. He was a great chief. And he really worked hard for his people. And he came in and addressed us, and he says, you know, you're going out to school. Make sure you do good in school, because I want you to come and work for your people. So that always stuck with me, and I did. I ended up at home, and I. I put my name into to being on council, and so I was a counselor at a very young age. So I was groomed by the
Oh.
elderly, the older counselors, I guess. And so I was one of the first women counselors, and I was also the process itself. So I was groomed into the position, and to become chief was very hard. It didn't happen the first time, right? And I knew in my heart I wanted to be a chief, and I knew that a lot of times the process. Oh well, you have to become a counselor first, and so I went that route, right? And I was there for 12 years, and. And I thought that I made change with my nation, and then and so okay, I want to become chief. And so first I tried 3 times actually to become chief. So
Wow.
so the first time I didn't make it, and so you know I work for my people still in health. Health is my background. And then the second time I didn't win again. And okay, I said, okay, Creator, where do you want me to be?
Mhm.
Right? And I ended up in health. I ended up to see the inside of the system on how our people are looked at and looked after. We think that this whole thing is through this whole process of Health Canada, right? And so I was there, and then my third kick at the cat, and that was it. That was it, right? And I'm saying this is the last time. If I'm not meant to be chief, then that's fine. I'll continue to work for my people in another manner, in another way, where I would have influence on government. And so the third time, and so it was so funny. And I think it's very important that I be able to share this, because so I had and it was a woman. It was mostly women that supported me. We were going around putting up our signs for Cathy Merrick for chief, right? And so we did all that. And then, so we have a long process where our election is only within our traditional territories. So we didn't have voting stations anywhere else but within our traditional territory. And so, which gave our relatives in our little communities an opportunity to vote for Bowden, Thicket Portage. What was the other one? And then Thompson had a polling station at the time. And so, and if you wanted to vote, you would have to come into the community to vote, right? So anyway, so they're counting, and we did the manual counting, You'd probably count all night and whatnot. So we were at my relatives, and my team was there, and they were sitting there making sure, right? And and so we were there, and I came home. I got tired and whatnot. I okay, I'm gonna go home and sleep and see what happens when I wake up, I guess. And so there's this knock on my door, and one of my people that was on my campaign, she came. You won. She said to me, right? And then I said, well, what was the count? Oh, they're still counting, she said. I said, okay. And then, so what happened was, so I did win. And so all the people that came into my house, and they stood in a circle outside in my yard, and they put me in the middle, and they all held hands, and they blessed me. They blessed me in that manner. And so I had to, our process is to go to the hall and do our acceptance speech right away and whatnot. So that was done. And it was, I was so happy that I was in a position to be able to be chief. So that's my story to becoming chief of my nation, and it was through our election law. We developed our own election law, and the term in there was 4 years and 10 months. So the 2 month transition basically came up to 5 years. So I was happy to be able to serve my people's chief for 5 years. And so from there, becoming the chief of Michigan Cree Nation, we were one of the nations that were signatory to the Northern Flood Agreement, and we were the one of the communities that upheld the Northern Flood Agreement to the original contents of the agreement. And it was very important to me as a chief and as a leader that Manitoba Hydro, which was signatory to that document, and the federal government and the provincial government, that we be able to hold them accountable as to the contents of the document, and we should have been one of the richest people in this province, because the contents of that document was to eradicate mass poverty for my people. And that never happens. We're still, even today, I know that the leader, my chief, I'm very respectful to him, and that he's done a lot of work, and he's done a lot of good work for our nation. And that, so the struggle is still there with the government. So hopefully this new government that we have here in the province of Manitoba, with our Aboriginal Premier, Wab Kariu, I'm just happy that I'm very grateful that he's placed there as the Premier of Manitoba. Very proud. We're very proud that he's there. So so again, we're when I go back to my nation, and that we're a very big nation. We have 1,800 children in the school system, and you know, we faced the struggles, and we faced the struggles of being put on a reserve, and in my language, a reserve is Skunigan. They call it Skunigan, and it's interpreted to be leftover land. It was never good for our people. It's basically swampland and whatever, and so this is the history of our people in terms of the location of where we live.
You've just done so much. You're part of such a rich culture. And I can't help but notice too that whenever you introduce yourself or whenever people are talking about you, one of the things that they mention the most is how proud you are as a mom and as a kukum. And I guess how much of that role, that kind of life giver, caregiver role, influences your leadership and what and how you advocate on behalf of First Nations?
I guess I don't guess, but a lot of times, in terms of who I am and where I came from, and in respect to my mother who passed, and all that she did for us when we were growing up, in and all the work that she did. So she really influenced me in to be able to provide for family, to be able to be there for family, and to be able to take that role as well as an auntie to my nephews and my nieces, and so it's very important to me. It's very important to me in terms of our children, and in terms of our teachings when it comes to our children, that they're loaned to us by Creator. And one of the teachings was that they pick us to be their parents. So these little spirits pick us to be their parents, and I'm always grateful that my three sons have picked me, and I thank them, and I'm very blessed with six grandchildren that I have.
Wow.
Yes, and my Kingston, my oldest grandson, is he lives with us, and and again that goes back to the teaching where the firstborn grandson would be able to live with you and to help you and whatnot. So those teachings are still there, without even realizing, right?
Yeah.
And and so he lives with us,
Hmm.
and I don't get to see my other grandchildren as much as I would like, since I had to move to the city to be able to do the work that I'm doing. And so there's a lot of FaceTiming and whatnot, but I always keep it in my heart when they come. I love you, Kukum. You know, I just that's what carries me. That's what carries me in my work. And when we talk about children, the children belong at home with their
Mhm.
parents, with their mom and their dad, and we still have systems in place that separate that and take away that love from the parents, and that and though we struggle, we need to be able to help them, and we need to be able to have that family unit in place for them.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, I feel like we can't separate our family, the issues that we face, our governing structures, the politics. I mean, we live and breathe it. And to know that, like women have a different perspective. We all have valuable perspectives, but I feel like women who have this life-giving role, new responsibility really early on, and you just kind of apply that to our people. And I think about all the things that are going on in Manitoba. You've got this previously horrible government who is just so anti First Nation, who wouldn't search the landfill. You've got the growing crisis of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, the kids in foster care, the increasing rates of over incarceration, lack of clean water, housing crisis. There's just so many things. But the one thing I notice is that Manitoba is impacted in a disproportionate way. It feels like Manitoba First Nations have additional barriers in it. And I think about those hurdles, and with like you have so many issues to address as Grand Chief. You don't get to be a one issue Grand Chief. And I'm wondering, like, what are your priorities right now? Like, I mean, obviously, you campaigned to be Grand Chief, you won, people celebrated, and knowing that you can't do it all, what are some really key priorities for you in this term?
This well, actually, I came in on a by-election, so
Oh.
I'm up for election come July, right? But I've been very blessed to be in this position, and again, it's destiny. And I was asked by leadership to see if I would put in my name, and I thought about it for a long time because I was comfortable with where I was at the time, and so it just happened that I said, okay, I will run. And the funny thing was, it was so funny. And so we're campaigning, right? And then, and then, so we're in election mode. We were doing our speeches, whatnot, and then we were going into second round. And then this woman comes up to me and says, "You know, you could potentially be the first woman Grand Chief for the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs." And I'm going, really? Because I always thought that there was a woman prior to me being here, right? And then, yeah, she said, and I kind of go, oh, I'm glad I didn't know that when I was camping. I would have been so scared, right? And so all these things happened, and I was so grateful that the leadership, the chiefs, believed in me that I would be able to do work that I was that I promised that I would do. I know I didn't
Yeah.
finish as much as I could, but I always believed that things happen for a reason.
Mhm.
And when I first came on board as the Grand Chief and all this landfill, uh, the what happened in December when it was announced that our women were 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 found and they were found to be in a landfill. So we did a lot of work, and it's been over a year in terms of that.
Wow.
And so right now, at this point in time, it's the trial, right? That's happened here
Mhm.
in the city, and we always reach out to the families. It was a family first process where when we first started talking to governments that they were there from the get-go, and that their input was so important to the process, and that we were able to and that we were able to ensure that both the federal and the provincial government were a part of being able to assist the families. So we got there where there was a commitment of 20 million from the federal government and 20 million from the provincial government to reach the landfills. So the outcome of we didn't want to say anything or do anything before the trial. And so the trial is on, and hopefully it'll go swiftly and that we will be able to start that work. So it's convincing government that that our women are life givers, and that our women
Mhm.
are do not do not belong in landfills. So it really broke my heart that we had to go through all that for over a year, where other and we looked, right, we searched, and there was other like I think it was Toronto where that there was a man that they had to search for landfills, and it was their police service that did it right
Yeah.
away. Where in Winnipeg here, no, they're not going to do it. We called out the chief of police. We asked for his resignation and whatnot, and so I think if they would have done it at the time, you know, this wouldn't have been wouldn't have taken that long to get to where we're at. And just recently in Saskatchewan, they are searching a landfill for a missing woman.
Oh.
So it just makes you want to work harder, you know.
Mhm.
And uh, and uh, and we do. we do here in Manitoba. We've done a lot of good work, and always say this because, like the residential school, right? That whole process was from Manitoba. It was Manitoba driven. The uh, the CFS that was Manitoba driven, right? The day school that was Manitoba driven, and the clean water legislation. That whole process was Manitoba driven. So and we have the most populated First Nation people are in Manitoba, right? So and I always would like to recognize and appreciate the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Women's Council. You don't hear about this very much, but they were the ones that created the Bringing Our Children Home document. And so that kicked off this whole process on the CFS as to where it is now. So I always, every opportunity I have to thank them, and we created the Women's Council here at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and at the time I was on council, and so I kind of got embraced by them as well, right? Where they and we were talking about it and how long we've been up, but we created the Women's Council to be able to assist our male leaders in these circumstances in child welfare, right? As mothers, as cookums, that these priorities that affect our women and our First Nations. And so when I talk about as well MMIWG and and our 62 First Nations here in Manitoba, and that this whole process here in Manitoba, we can't forget that our women come from First Nations, and they're the ones that end up in the urban areas, and that we need to be able to reach out to our First Nations. So that's when I came on board as the Grand Chief, that actually is coming up, and I'm very happy that you're going to be here with us, is through our women's gathering, and that we be able to come together, that we be able to talk about the issues that affect us from First Nations, because it's a whole different life when you're living on a First Nation compared to an urban area, right? Totally different. And you have to be able to live on a First Nation to be able to see it, and to be able to hear the struggles of your people, where there's 10, 20 people. And this is truth. And this is truth because I've seen it, and I've lived it, and I have heard it from my people, where our young people are couch surfers because they have no place to sleep. Where now, where our nations have camps of tents because there's no place for them to live in our nations. Where there's TB, some disease that should have been eradicated 30, 40, 50 years ago, is still there in our First Nation communities. There's communities that don't have running water, like some homes still don't have running water. And can you believe that?
No.
It's 2024, and that's something that I always need to be able to speak through the lens of First Nations, through the lens of the chiefs and struggles. They're what the chiefs are. They're administering the poverty of their people for the governments, and that's what's happening. And if you're able to ever look at a budget from a First Nation, and the income assistance is like $12 million, where your economic development is $250,000. So that tells you a lot, and that tells a story.
Oh my gosh, does it ever tell a story?
Yeah.
And I think for any of the listeners who maybe this is the first episode you're listening to, and you're just learning about First Nation issues, keep in mind these are all the socioeconomic issues that we're facing. And we haven't even talked about treaty rights, land rights, Aboriginal rights, inherent rights, like all of the big time rights we have based on First Nation laws, the Constitution, international law. And so, you know, I feel for chiefs who are so chronically underfunded, trying to manage it, being blamed for everything, even though chiefs have no independent power. And
Yeah.
then now you're the grand chief. So people are going to look to you and say, hey, what about these rights? When it's so hard just to deal with the social issues, how do you advance all of these like legal rights that we're talking about, land rights and treaty rights? Because I know throughout history, AMC has been very vocal on all the legal rights of First Nations.
Correct. And I'm a strong believer in our treaty rights. And
Mhm.
I'm a very strong advocate for our treaty rights here in the province of Manitoba. I have brought on very good people that speak about our treaty rights, and I'm sure you're aware of a former national chief Ovid Mercury, and he's been able to help me in that process. And there was a time and day where you know treaty rights to talk about talking about our rights was first and foremost for our leaders, and somewhere along the road we became indigenized, and you will not find that word in our treaties. And so are we diminishing our rights through that whole process? And that's something that we need to be very, 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 very vocal on, because as First Nations, and we're put into a a box with other Indigenous peoples that were the same rights as First Nation people, which includes the Métis and Inuit people.
Mhm.
And so I always ensure that we be able to speak treaty and to be able to understand each other. And actually, I just got the mandate through our last assembly in terms of being able to bring together our treaty areas and whatnot. And so it's a very powerful mandate resolution to be able to do that. So I'm very happy and really that we be able to have a gathering this summer with all our areas in Manitoba.
It's incredible the amount, I think, on an individual chief, and then the amount of obligation and responsibility on the tribal councils, and then on the treaty organizations. And then I think, and then the grand chief, you're literally, if things are going good, you're wearing it well. And if things are going bad, everyone points to you as if you have power over everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, the fact that you come from your culture, you're a Cree speaker, you were raised by, this big family, you have a big family, you have this dedication to supporting other women, especially like the AMC Women's Council. The
Yeah.
fact that there's even enough women chiefs to have an AMC Women's Council is pretty striking when you think about the many, many decades where you
Yeah.
didn't see women chiefs
Yeah.
anywhere, right? And then so I'm thinking, now you have a women's council, and they've been so active on so many things. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
thing I appreciate about you and the Women's Council is that you keep the focus on issues that impact First Nation women and children in a way that decades previous, although, chiefs and leaders were doing their best to
Mm-hmm.
deal with all the issues, women's issues and children's issues just weren't a priority, but now they're front and center. I mean, AMC, and you are known for addressing kids in care, murdered and missing Indigenous women, searching the landfill, socioeconomic supports.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just it shows the change, and I think your leadership and the support of the AMC Women's Council, which I've seen involved in
Yeah,
everything, they're
yeah,
so
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, they are.
I think that's really important. And another thing that I've noticed, I'd say maybe in the last 10 or 15 years, is that more and more Canadians, because of social media, I think, and because of our advocacy, know more about the issues. And they don't just know more, they're pressuring governments, they're, taking steps to actually help address First Nation issues. How important do you think that is? And are there specific things that you think Canadians and Manitobans in particular can be doing to help First Nations?
Yes, of course, and we always appreciate, and it has changed within time. There
Mhm,
was a time that uh, they wouldn't even talk about Indians,
mhm,
right? And to never mind talk to Indians. And so this whole it has changed within time, and I really appreciate the support that we do get from people. But there's still people out there that will never ever admit
mhm,
to us being the first people of Turtle Island, and that we were here for time immemorial, and that we were the first people here, and. So the history of our people needs to be relayed to newcomers to the province, newcomers to the country of Canada, and I think it's very important that uh, before they wave their Canadian flags as a citizen, that they be able to know and to learn about First Nation people here in Canada. So, and I'm just speaking from ourselves as a Cross Lake, as a Pimichikamak, where we have a citizenship law, right? And so our citizenship law, you have to know some of the questions that were asked were okay. Where is Cross Lake? What is Cross Lake? What's the language? Uh, what's their priorities? Are you able to speak the language? So it's very important. It was a very
mhm,
important process for us. And so for people, for me, for people coming into the country and to become citizens, that they know who First Nation people are and our purpose here. And so this is something that we are struggling with here in Manitoba as well, right? And that as we continuously be able to speak to it and the
mhm.
treatment of our people, and that we are humans, that we nobody should treat anybody that we that's over and gotten done with, right? So
Mhm.
we're on this journey to be able to educate people that to come here and whatnot. So
That's good advice. It
mhm.
really is their responsibility to take up that, charge to self-educate. There's
Mhm.
so much online now, and I'm thinking if people wanna know more about First Nations in Manitoba or the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs or the AMC Women's Council, where can they go to get more information?
ManitobaChiefs.com. I got my comms person.
Yeah.
We do a lot of social media, and I'm so grateful for our comms here at the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs to be able to really everything that we do, and it's important. It's important to
Mhm.
be able to share with our people what's happening and what we're doing, and so very excited.
Thank you so much for taking all of this time. I mean, we're not a 5-minute podcast, we effectively end up being an hour, but I you can't really know people, you can't really know the issues, you can't really understand someone's background and lived experience unless you have an extended conversation. And I know
Mhm.
that's a lot to ask from a grand chief who is dealing with all of these issues that we talked about. So I really, really appreciate the time that you took to help our listeners better understand what's happening in Manitoba.
Yes, Gila, thank you so much. And you have to be able to experience life to talk
Mhm.
about it. So
Yeah.
that's where I come from. and I'm very happy, and I'm very looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much. And
All right.
thank you to all of the listeners for listening. Thank you to the viewers on YouTube or the people who read closed captions on YouTube. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, but more importantly, for supporting all the people that come on this podcast and their causes. And anytime you can support First Nations, please do so. It means so much. And you can use this podcast as a learning tool, as a education in classrooms. I mean, there's so much you can do to support First Nations. So thank you very much. Thanks to everyone. Until next time, keep living a warrior life. Walalia.